Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Admiral Markets. Welcome to the trading room. We're going to take a look at the Forex market in just a second and take a look at the euro dollar and all the currency pairs we want to look at. But as always, first a risk disclaimer explaining that trading, in fact, global financial markets is considered high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational purposes only. All right. Thank you for your attention on that. We'll be taking a look at live Forex trading today on the 13th of November. On Wednesday, we have some interesting news coming up on the pound. We'll be taking a look at that in just a second. We'll be focusing primarily on defining the trend, searching for opportunities, checking filters, establishing a trigger, and deciding an entry methodology or end method. Okay, using primarily fibs, trend lines, moving averages, price action, etc. Before we do that, though, I'm going to say good morning to Michal. Good morning. I'm not sure if Michal's there. Normally he tunes in by now. Oh, at the moment, okay, I just got a chat. I didn't have that chat open, but I got informed that he's not there at the moment. That's no problem. So maybe we'll hear from him later on. In the meantime, we'll move on and take a look at the calendar. There it is. So we got a lot of pound news. We have a Bank of England inflation report. We have the Bank of England governor speaking. We have unemployment rate and claimant account change. So there's a lot of stuff coming up in 1 hour 40 and 2 hour 40. Pound would definitely be advisable to be careful with that. And maybe all currency pairs in a way, because it's quite a lot of news coming up, but specifically the pound, of course. So we'll have to be careful of that. Michal, good morning.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for waiting for me here. I hope that we can see and hear me okay. I haven't yet changed the settings. I'll now change them to me, yes. If anybody can put something into the chat saying that we can see my screen okay. Fantastic, fantastic. We had a bit of a technical problem yesterday and the day before. But today everything's going to be fantastic because today I have a Mac. So there we go. My name is Michiel Onnegal. I'm a client relationship manager. You haven't been able to see this presentation yesterday, but here it is today. My status in the company is as client relationship manager. So in essence, my job is to create the best possible trading environment for you. You can always reach me on my email, my Skype, and you can also add me as connection on LinkedIn. I cherish all new connections. Today is going to be another fun episode with Forex, and today we are going to talk about open outcry, or how I like to call this episode or this series, the death of open outcry. What do you see, or what do you see when you think about trading, or investment, or exchange? You see something like this. You see a lot of people dressed in interesting jackets, yelling, flapping their hands, showing signals, talking on the phone, buying, selling, and doing it all at the same time. This very site, the site of Open Outcry Market, has inspired me to become interested in finance. And 7 years of university later, here I am today. However, nowadays, trading does not happen like this at all. And from all the markets in the world, only a few still operate a more open outcry way. We have the markets in New York, Chicago, and we have a London Metal Exchange. Those are the only stock exchanges that actually allow open outcry trading. How is the rest of the trading going on? The rest of the trading has switched to electronic systems. We have SATs, turquoise, we have online trading books everywhere. those books are a lot easier to use because it automatically matches a buyer to a seller. So we have more parties, we have more orders coming in, and the market has grown tremendously thanks to the change to electronic trading. So next time you think about people trading stocks, you think about those guys, or even those guys. Nowadays, all of them, 100% of them, trade exactly like you with a computer, which makes you very, very cool. Think about it next time you open your MetaTrader and you want to long shares on Apple or Google, by the way, which could be done on Admiral Standard. Think about that. Nowadays, you have the same equipment professional traders have at their disposal. Thank you very much for listening to me. I will now happily pass the floor to Chris, and he will continue with this webinar. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michal, for that. That's great. Always to hear from Michal. We're going to continue indeed with this presentation and trading, I should say, in just a second. I was just sending a tweet, in fact, through the wave analysis. I'm now finished with that. Alrighty, good. The wave analysis, just to give a small promotion for myself, you can find that by going to admiralmarkets.com, go to analytics and click on wave analysis. And if you want to register for any webinar in the future, go to education webinars, and there's a whole list of webinars, of course, that we have here. Today we'll be looking at price action specifically. Later today in the evening, Nanette or Tarantula is going to take a look at stop loss practical examples. Tomorrow we have moving average trading. And then together we're going to present how to plan your trading in the evening, tomorrow evening. All right. So, well, today the pound news, that's definitely going to be an effect on the market. But so we might have quietness before that. Let's start with the euro. The euro got the bounce. You know, it was bounce or break. I wasn't surprised that we got a bit of a bounce here, to be honest. Right. This trend line. Oh, I don't have my drawing to open. Sorry about that. Let me quickly do that. I wouldn't be surprised to see a bit of a bounce, that we saw a bounce here. But that's a good trend line. I think when we break that trend line, that's definitely a signal that we can move down to 132.50, maybe even to 131 eventually. So that's something to keep an eye on. This upside, I would still definitely consider as a correction. It's a nice correction, something like similar to this, where you can see that the power to the upside is weak, and eventually we just get the trigger to move down. So whether that will be a technical or fundamental trigger, we'll see. With fundamental, I mean a news event, but you know, the likelihood if this trend line breaks for good downside is very high. So that's just a great setup right there, this trend line. In the meantime, we've actually reached the, no, we didn't. We were getting there. I wanted to say that we reached this minus 272. No. Okay, we actually didn't get there. So we could still move there, although the likelihood is decreasing because you can see we've reached the long-term moving average, and that itself could be already a big resistance spot. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually a turning spot. It is the 618 fib of that downside, of the euro interest rate downside, and double top maybe here. Maybe there is a potential for it to bounce one more time, move up to the 786, and then break. You know, could be a ascending wedge as well, like that. And we move down, pop up, and then like this. That's still possible. So a sell either from the 786 would be grand, or upon the break. The buy is less sure than yesterday. Yesterday was probably a bit better odds of that, although I don't like that type of trading. Maybe a bit better odds than today. This is just very bearish price action, a lot of momentum to the downside. We had a bit of a wick here, as Ned was saying on Thursday as well, which probably caused this correction. But you can see there's no momentum to the upside. It's just going flat. There's no power there. Take a look at the daily chart. Daily chart, we do have some bullish daily candles. So that's why a break of that trend line is good as well, because then we'll be breaking these daily lows as well. Any shorts in here, we have to be careful because it is a bullish daily candle. So any shorts in here could easily see that, could see a potential support just looking at the daily candle. And then once we pop up, we'll probably see an exhaustion wick on the daily, something like that, if we do move up to the 786. Personally, what I expect most is a drop here, a bit of a bounce, and then a break. We'll see this band turn over. It will become resistance most likely. And once we pop through it like this, the band will turn and we'll use it as resistance. That's what I would say is my primary expectations. But I wouldn't necessarily trade it unless we really break it. Or we see some really good price action signal in here or here, of course. There is actually a potential trade upon this break of this 1 hour fractal with the stop loss just above. That is a potential as well. Alrighty. Pound dollar. Pound dollar made a very big move down after that news event. In literally a few minutes, it flew down 75 pips. And we broke through that trend line and through the bigger weekly 158.90 support. So that's confirming the bearish momentum here, because if you look at the daily chart, let me take everything off. If you look at the daily chart, obviously this was a very strong impulse up, and it actually lasted all the way till yesterday. This was still the daily support here. Now that we've broken that, this is turning into a confirmed turnaround. We already had double top, but we still bounced off the support here for a hook back and now continue. So that's looking pretty bearish, although you never know with the pound. We got to be careful with bottom breaks, because sometimes a small bottom break, we could still see a bigger correction before we fall. So something we still have to be aware of. But looking at price action, it's quite bearish. If you look at the daily candle, a very decent bearish candle. And I would still think that the chances is pretty big to fall. But because it's a pound and because we have such a big news announcements, that, I would not say that we should necessarily assume that. There's definitely that possibility that the news could spike it up and we see something like that and then down. Look at this bottom break, right? We got an exact opposite. The pound likes to do the opposite with bottom breaks, so we have to be aware of that. But in general, the long-term picture, though, is bearish, definitely. Alrighty. 4 hour chart. 4 hour chart looking very bearish as well. No doubt about that. We had a very nice downside here after the double top. And a good break here. Back to the 1 hour now. In fact, the break of this support fractal right there was probably key. That trend line, in fact, this one, that was probably the number one factor, but still, this one was a nice break too. Now we, of course, had that support right here already. Down to the 1 hour chart, and this is this is looking like a hook back, in fact. I don't know if anyone sold it there. I sold it personally at the 61.8. I was a bit hesitant because the move up was very, very strong. But I was thinking that at least at minimum I would expect to move down before we move up. And in fact, I'm not even sure if we'll get that move up. It will depend on the news event, of course. If we go back to the 786 to retest this trend line and then move down. That's something definitely that could happen. I don't think we necessarily have divergence here. Let me check. Maybe a bit between these bottoms, slightly. In any case, what I liked about that trade here was the fact that we broke this bottom. We broke the weekly support. We broke this trend line. Usually if we break trend lines like that, we get a hook back and continue, like here. So that's what I was thinking. The upside did move a bit more aggressive than I was anticipating. I thought we would get more like something like this, to be honest. But we are moving down as we speak. If we look at the 15, if it were not for that interest, I mean for that news announcement, that could be already a break itself, in fact, with a small stop loss above here and an entry right there. Or a bit lower, maybe just below here. But wouldn't touch it now. I mean, that's, wouldn't touch that now. I'm still in that pound, but I do have it at plus 5 pips at the moment. Maybe I'll move that more. I don't want to lose on that trade. The news event could be quite spiky, so I might even move that stop loss. I'll have to think about that. So let's see. This looks pretty bearish, in fact, this break. But then again, it's early morning and a lot of news events to come, so it could be just a dip for a rise. That's something we'll have to see, really, depending on the news. Let's take a look at the euro pound. The euro pound got that break to the upside. And yeah, in retrospect, maybe should have taken the break itself. It was a nice bull flag. I don't, to be honest, I don't like the euro pound all too much, as you know, but it was a nice break. This was a nice break. And looking at the situation now, I think any dip we could easily see continue. This is nicely an uptrend. All right. So looks good. Take a look at the 4 hour. 4 hour is back at resistance. This is a supply and demand zone. We've looked at supply and demand zone trading, so that could give cause for this to move back down and maybe go back to this supply and demand. Look, here's a supply and demand. Impulse, supply and demand up, right? So that could happen. Something like that might be in the cards. So if we put a line there as well, let me make that a bit thicker. I'm looking at this 1 hour chart. I'm not even sure if we can go that deep, but if we do, it will be a bouncing spot. Daily chart is definitely showing a lot of bullish candles. So any downside could be retracement of the daily candle for more upside. And we could retest this top. $15-minute world showing that we can make the retracement, but we don't know exactly where we could bounce. That's the problem with retracement trades. You have no idea how far they can move, right? That's the problem. Let's move on. The lowest chart I look for entries. No, I look at 15-minute too for entries, not only 1 hour. So it would depend on the strategy, in fact. Breakouts, I use 15-minute world, for example. Fib trades, I would tend to use the 1 hour, not so much the 15. So this is the odd USD. We talked about it. I was a bit leery yesterday, so close to the 92.80. We did get eventually to fall, and we broke through the 92.80. And this is just keeps on looking very bearish, in fact. We've already had a break, in fact, of the Aussie earlier today of this trend line right in here. That was here. That's a break of this trend line in fractal at 93. Stop loss could be above for 10 pip, and you'll probably be up 10 right now, or 8. Good correction. That's the type of correction that is very pleasant to trade. You got an impulse, got a weak up move, and then the break, boom, right? That's the best trading. Because if you start selling it right in here, you still have to wait a lot of time before you get the continuation. Let's see, Kiwi got to push through the support trend line we were scared of. Let me see exactly when it happened. We were looking at it here and we're saying this could still bounce up, but not too far. I think we said 8250. We were talking about 8250, I think, weren't we? Yeah, I was talking about this minus 272 target, I think. I think I said 8250-ish, right? Something like that. It went to 8248. Didn't expect that much, but a bit of upside before the fall. Definitely expected that. That usually happens if you're hanging in here, that you get some upside, seller step in, and then drive it down. That's exactly what happened, right? So this was, we're talking about two spots, I remember, somewhere in here and here, I think. We went to the lower one of those two, right? And got that continuation. Now, making a move back up again. We're getting a break as we speak here, in fact. $82.19. Let's see. Well, then, yeah. The problem is I would take a short in here right now, in fact, with the stop loss just above here. Then again, yeah, the pound news is a bit tricky. Even maybe for New Zealand, I don't know. What do you think? Head and shoulders. This maybe. Daily. Okay. Well, I'm looking just for a 50-minute break out trade here. We can take a look at that. I'm a bit reluctant with the news event, I have to admit. Otherwise, that would be a good breakout. Just like the Aussie broke out, it would be a good 50-minute break on the Kiwi. Yeah. That definitely. Certainly. I didn't look at the higher time frames yet because I have a feeling that most traders like the lower time frames. Also, we look at many currencies, and if we look at 5 or many time frames, it would probably take a bit longer. But absolutely a good observation, Milan. Definitely. And in fact, we're kind of like poking through that support right now. If we do, that could be a good fallback to this bottom, potentially. Definitely. This 4-hour chart is already in a downtrend. You can see price was up above the moving averages here, then started to reverse and now is below it. Day chart, very bearish price action as well. It's a pretty big wick. So, from a price action point of view, any dip down here, I would say be careful still of this level right in here, because that could still provide a bounce before we maybe break. That's a pretty big wick. Now, this could be the second breakthrough. In fact, this was the first attempt. Often the first breakout doesn't get the immediate follow through, right? Just in case, most of you probably know that, but the second follow through is always a bit more reliable, because the first break often stumbles upon things like this, like the pound does as well. You often see retracement after the breakthrough, especially a break of a horizontal level. So in theory, though, I would think that this is a good 15-minute break, but I'm more cautious today. Dollar Swiss, I like this trend line here. We talked about it yesterday. If we get a good trend line, I would love that break. I think we talked about that. Anyhow, that looks like a very good break. We broke above last month's high. Let's take a look. Let me get rid of everything here. This is a monthly chart. And we broke above last month's high. Last month was a doji right at the bottom. So that could mean we could head back towards resistance at 96. And we broke last month's high at 91.80, indicating potential to move up. We got bullish weekly candles breaking the weekly top here as well. Daily chart. We're at 23.6%. If we break above that trend line, we could head up to the -27, -618, and challenge this top. Alrighty. We got a very bearish, triangle here, bullish triangle that broke to the upside, and now we have a classical trend line here. I like that upside potential. Price is back towards the band, which could provide support for that upside. In fact, the dollar Swiss is the opposite of the euro dollar. We're back at the long-term moving averages as well here, which definitely could provide that support. So here too, a good breakout trade potential. Really like that trade. You can just, if you want to target, just put a fib on the last upside and aim for the -272 and -618, or even higher if you think there's enough space. For example, on this dollar Swissy, we can see that the top all the way here is at 94.50, so maybe you can even aim for higher, 94 for example. Right there. Dollar yen making a bear flag, or bull flag, sorry. Very weak one. Here a continuation would seem very good suited for this currency and this situation. Would be a very good break, I think. Looking like a small weak correction, and a breakout trade would be looking good. Got corrective price action like that. we have very bullish price action prior to that. So break would be with the trend, definitely. Okay, keep an eye on that. This is looking bullish. The only problem I see is the 100 level. Now, dollar yen is pretty close to that. A break above that would definitely be pleasant for to take away the resistance. 160 is very important, just like 103.60. Once we break above 100 and 106.60, though, we should see some space to the upside already, and that would be really confirming that bullish expectations. If we don't, then this thing could actually respect the long-term resistance still and fly down. So it's something we have to be careful of. Looking at shorter-term time frames like this is absolutely looking bullish, though. Let's see if we get the break. Yeah, the pound quick close in reverse here, which doesn't surprise me. The break just doesn't have any follow through. It's early. There's a news event. So in that environment, the breakout is not the same as a normal breakout. In that environment, the breakout is seen as a cheap place to buy, really, if you think about it. You'll see this more often. It's just no follow-through. Euro-yen. We were talking about the euro-yen yesterday, that we took this reversal, or I didn't take it, but I said this could be a reversal trade, and it'll probably make a three-wave down. It did. In fact, this didn't hit the level I was talking about 133.10. I was saying 133 in here. It was shy. It went to 133.16. But in a way, what I should have mentioned was, and I forgot that, but if you put a fib on this downside, then either minus 272 or minus 618 will be actually the bouncing spot, most likely. But I did say don't expect too much of the downside, because this is setting up trends, so we could easily see support kick in, right? That's what we did. We saw a very big move, actually, 60, 70, 80 pips. Continuation to the upside. In the meantime, we have a bear flag again, or triangle here, bull flag triangle, sorry. But this bull flag is coming after a very extensive upside, and the chances of some retrace are definitely possible. Pound yen. Pound yen is quite messy, especially if you look at this zone and this spike up, down. Yikes, it really has no clear direction on this 4-hour chart. The daily chart is the only thing that makes sense, because here we can see a total consolidation above the previous top. So that's the only thing that looks bullish, in fact. But otherwise, it's just really a range, in fact. Let's take a look at something else. Euro odd. Euro odd, definitely looking bullish. We were looking at yesterday at the bullishness. I didn't like the 50-minute divergence, but you can see that the divergence on smaller time frames sometimes doesn't have that much effect or importance. What it was true, though, is that we did get a bit of a correction before we did move up. So it was justified to wait here a bit more cautious, but we did get the continuation, pretty big continuation, in fact, all the way to 145 almost. And now it looks like we're going to do the same, in fact. Looks like we're breaking again. The entry could be just above that trend line with stop loss here. just like something like maybe this, for example, right in here and here. Here too, though, yeah, maybe. Well, yeah, with the euro out, we don't know how far this thing can really break and continue. That's the thing. I was already hesitant here. I took the euro New Zealand instead, as you know. I was a bit hesitant with the euro odd yesterday, but it still continued, so you never know. The 4-hour chart, what is this line? This is nothing. The difference maybe here is that it is getting closer to this resistance. So maybe a bit more cautious. Yesterday we still had space to the upside. Euro New Zealand got that continuation too. Just in retrospect, maybe put that stop loss a bit too tight because it only went to 162.44 before we saw a 200 pip continuation, in fact, to the upside. So I wasn't aiming that necessarily that far, but there was a lot of pips to the upside. We were buying it relatively low, but maybe the stop loss just a bit too tight. Maybe we should have used these bottoms instead. That would have held, and aim for a bit higher R2R. I mean, a higher reward. Could have been a bit better, but maybe some of you re-entered. It did break nicely to the upside. Gold. Gold is breaking this trend line and breaking this potential inverse head and shoulders we were thinking that could play out, but we didn't get the bounce yesterday. We broke through that, and we still haven't broken this bottom, so we're in a limbo. We're basically have to be a bit patient and wait for this patient to decide which direction it wants to go. This hook back could in fact already be back to resistance, but I wouldn't be too sure of that considering the fact that we're so close to this daily bottom. Because of that, we really don't know at the moment what side it would choose. Either break of that bottom for downside basically, or if we break above these tops, maybe we can expect upside back to the trend line. And above the trend line and the green line, resistance, we can expect more upside. Dollar index. Let's see. Well, we got a fractal here, in fact, indicating some pause, at least at the moment, with some wick at the top. And here, let's see if this is indeed a struggle to continue and break above, or is it just a small pause, or can we get a bigger retracement? For those breakout trades on the euro dollar and dollar Swiss to materialize, we would really need a break of this dollar index to the upside, in fact. Gold has been continuing down, silver, sorry. Looks like it's breaking through this support line. Wow, all the way down to 2080. And boy, oh boy, there were so many people buying silver here. I know a few of them at least. Let me say it this way. Sure that others were doing that as well. Expecting that this XAG would go back to test this top or back to this resistance. Well, personally, I was bearish on both of them and saw this as a potential correction. In fact, down to 20, I was thinking. It went further than that, in fact. It went all the way to 18. Wow. Because if you look at the pattern, this looks like a correction. First correction, this just looked like a sideways chop, and I'm not surprised to have seen that. but we're breaking again, so who knows? I mean, can't imagine even lower, but could it be one more drop? I don't know. Who knows? It would be funky to me. I can't imagine it going below 18 somehow, but let's see. Anyhow, let's take a look at the last ones. Pound New Zealand is very choppy. Pound odd, moving nicely to the upside, just like the euro odd as well. The euro odd, in fact, is breaking as we speak. The euro odd looks a bit better than the pound odd, and it looks to have more momentum, and that's, you can look easily. Just look at the band and the angle of the band. It's flat. It's still breaking to the upside, I'm not saying, but if you look at the euro odd, there's an angle to it, right? So there's definitely more momentum. And if you look at price, it's actually hanging above the band. And if you look at the pound odd, it's actually in the band. So there's a small relative differences there. And it has to do with the euro pound. The fact that the euro pound, of course, has been moving to the upside recently. So this is a breakout trade potentially. One of the things I don't like about it is the fact that it's breaking out of a pretty big 15-minute zone. But otherwise it would, and the new pound news, but it does look like we'll get some follow through here in a break. I wouldn't be all too ambitious though, maybe 1.5 to 1, 2 to 1 R2R, or trail stop it using the 50-minute fractal. The euro New Zealand has the same break, in fact. We could put it like this, or we could put the trend line like that. Both are equally valid. And we're breaking as we speak. Same as the euro odd, basically. We can take a look at the odd New Zealand to see, what we could expect from the odd New Zealand, because euro odd and euro New Zealand both have the euro. So let's take a look at the odd New Zealand. This is the daily chart. It's quite a mess, in fact. It's just or mess is the wrong word, just a range. But if anything, it seems to be breaking this support trend line, or has broken it already, in fact. This is a very big chop, in fact. Look at that. Big chop. Wow. No clear winner there. And if anything, it broke to the downside here, made a huge hook back, continued. Difficult to say at the moment. If anything, the odd looks a bit weaker, so the euro odd could be a bit better if you look at this chart. But there's a bit of a wick here, and a bearish candle, and a small upside. So if anything, it does look a bit more bearish. So probably euro odd could have its advantages compared to euro New Zealand then. Odd USD is continuing its downside. We were just too late for that break. That break happened a bit earlier, as we said already, but it is continuing nicely. The Kiwi as well. Yeah, it's still, I was a bit hesitant with that, but still marching forward. Down, sorry. Looking like a good break, as I said. Good breakout trades today. What else? Let's go back. Pound dollar made a spike up. This is the euro dollar. It's going to be quiet, folks, today, with especially on the euro dollar, pound dollar, I would say. We won't see sustainable breakouts, so I wouldn't anticipate that at the moment. I would expect this really to be the downside. I mean, if it doesn't turn down here, and it pushes one more time up, then carefully look how the downside reacts. If it's looking like a bull flag, the next break, in fact, it's already actually turning to the upside. If we get a spike, but really a close and reverse like that, and we're back down in this area, then it's bearish. At least that's my opinion. That's what I'll be looking for. If we do spike up here, how does the reversal look like? The retracement look like? If it's fast like this, it's still downside. If it really is a bull flag, it just moves down like this, and we get a bounce here, then we can easily take already the upside trade in here. If we do move down fast, then we can watch for the break to the downside. I've seen these patterns play out numerous times, and we're at a talking spot, that's for sure. The difference is that the upside spike, I would not necessarily consider that the signal that we're in upside, unless we really move down slowly as well, because we can get a spike up and down, and then we'll be back in the downtrend. Okay, so if you want to take a look at those drawings, I'll just leave it there for a few seconds. Specifically, of course, the best trade at the moment is this breakout, or selling it from the after at the top here around 150, 135. But if it does break the slow downside, then we'll have to get out for break even. Alrighty, good. Take it away. Alrighty. Yeah, we can take a look at the odd cat indeed, something else. I think otherwise I've shown you all the currency, the dollar cat we can still take a look at. But let's first take a look at odd cat. Let's see. There it is. Pretty big spike up on this weekly chart. Yeah, looking at the downside momentum, we could definitely have reason to consider this a hook back for more downside. It wouldn't be strange to think that. and consider this actually as a resistance spot that would, past support now becomes resistance. This could be bearish confirmation, especially if you look at the engulfing twins price action signal there that we had. So that's the weekly. Let's take a look at the daily. Daily, we already broke through the support, making lower lows and lower highs now. And in fact, on the daily chart, you can see that we broke out of this support, or this channel, this uptrend channel, broke out of that. That's history, and now continuing down south. This is looking pretty bearish. Yeah, the 4-hour break is looking very nice. The only thing is that we have to realize is that it could make a hook back to the band and then move down. Everything moves in ups and downs. Everything moves in waves, in natural swings. So this downside could last for a while, but just be aware that we can still get a small kickback, kind of, before continuing. But otherwise, the long-term analysis, there's definitely reason to you can see that bearishness potential, and any up move I would say should at least see one more downside at minimum, if not more, depending on how far this could go on the long-term analysis, long-term time frame. Sorry. 1 hour chart. Yeah, we got a bit of divergence here. You can see this downside has lasted already for a while. You can easily put a trend line on top of that channel and a trend line here, for example. You can see it's a nice channel. Once we break out of that channel, we've got a potential to correct back, maybe to these long-term moving averages, bounce off that level for more downside. We could even hook back maybe to these broken bottoms, for example. Those are all levels that we could think about. You can even put a fib maybe on this downside. It doesn't really matter. Any of these spots would be resistance there. It's probably best to look for some price action confirmation anywhere in this zone. Sorry, anywhere in this zone, basically. Most likely for a confirmation that we could be turning again. All right. Now this thing can still push down lower for still a few pips. I'm not saying, but we do have to realize that eventually we will get that bigger correction. There's no doubt about that. It's not going to continue like that forever, right? The question is when. That's not always easy to predict, of course, when that will happen. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens soon because, as I said, we do have some divergence on the lower time frame. The 4-hour chart, though, is still looking at the oscillator. It's still pushing forward. So there could be some of the juice left in it. But if anything, the trade was from earlier this morning upon this break. That was the breakout trade there on the 50-minute world. All right. So the moving averages are basically 34 EMAs, close, open, and high. Close, high, and low. Sorry, not open and high. Sorry. Sorry. Alrighty. Any other currency that you might like to take a look at? Because I don't necessarily always look at these different combinations, but the odd cat is always interesting indeed. We can take a look at the dollar cat now, in fact. We haven't done that, and dollar cat is struggling at these tops, definitely. It's trying to break through, but it's not managing as yet. We can see a potential support trend line like this. We can also see a resistance line somewhere there. It's trying to break through and move up to 106, but it's not finding the follow through as yet. Let's see. Well, it's quite choppy. I mean, we do have a daily. I should add this trend line as well, in fact. We can see that's a weekly trend line. So let's go back to, or the daily, sorry. So we're struggling at that trend line. We're struggling at this resistance. It definitely has a lot of upside momentum, or not a lot, but it has some upside momentum. But not getting that follow through as yet. We could see the breakthrough soon. I'm not saying, but there is some divergence here. Difficult to say. I would say we really want to break above this level to expect that continuation. At this moment, it's really stuck in a very tight zone. It could even correct maybe lower and then bounce off here before it makes that move. So I'll be cautious right here. This could be a small bouncing spot. This could be a small bouncing spot here. This could be a bigger bouncing spot. But the real confirmation is above 105. So I would be cautious with the dollar CAD at the moment. What else? Anyone else have a S&P? Yeah, we can take a look at that. I would have to log into a different account. 1 second. Just before I do that, let me quickly make a quick scan for myself. Just out of curiosity, what's going on? Oh wow, the pound dollar made a pretty big spike again. Down she goes. As always, the pound likes to spike up and down, doesn't it, in the morning? Very well known for that. Alrighty. Well, nothing's going on, I guess. Let's take a look. Let's start with the long-term analysis. Monthly chart. Yeah, it's quite impressive, this break. And this weekly chart is just showing every week higher highs and higher lows almost. The only week that we didn't have it was in here. In fact, we had 3-week pause in here. We had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 week pause there. Here 4, 3, here 1. And other than that, there was just upside since it has been upside since 2 years. These are monthly charts. Sorry, this month. We've had upside ever since 2 years. In fact, of course, quantitative easing most likely, as most analysts say, driving this forward, but it's very interesting to see how all these monthly candles have higher highs and higher lows, except a small pause here, a small pause here, and one candle here for 2 years in a row. And in fact, we've had it for 4.5 years if you count from here, and we've only had significant pauses then here. Very bullish indeed. Weekly chart, you can see how extended prices away from the moving averages. When we've had that before, in most cases we did return back to the band, as you can see. Here we went back, here we went back, here we went back, and here we kind of went back. But we also had zones where we really extended further and further away. So difficult to say, really. I would definitely think that there's a potential to move back to the band, but you know, looking at the power of the uptrend, one would be almost a bit reluctant to call a or to try to find a top, because it has pushed up so much that who wouldn't say that it can push up again to another level, right? So that is a bit risky. One thing we could do is put a trend line like that. That'd probably be support as well. It's kind of like the same as the moving averages. Daily chart. Seeing some pause here. Maybe some divergence, but then again, we've already had divergence quite often, and the only thing they did was move back to the long-term moving average. This is a very well-established uptrend. It's not going to be easy to see any turnaround here. On all time frames, it's up. Doesn't matter which time frame you look at, maybe except the 1-minute chart. Interesting spike up and down. That certainly had to do with the probably the NFP, I think. Let me take a look. 7th of November. It was Thursday. That was the euro interest rate when it went down like that. The 8th was the Friday. That was after the NFP was released. The NFP had downside, it looks like, and an upside. It's difficult. I would say probably if we break above this green line, we could have a continuation trade. That's what I would say. But mind you, I hardly look at this. Definitely on a regular basis. If anything, probably once in a quarter. So, you know, it's please be aware of that. Let's take a look at the other one. DAX 2 really showing a massive uptrend. It was pretty low in 2003, all the way to 2000. Skyrocketed in 5 years and quadrupled. Financial crisis went back to half its value. And after a strong pullback here, is continuing up into higher highs and higher lows. Same like the S&P 500, in fact. There is a big wick here. Could that be an exhaustion wick? Who knows? Maybe. Maybe we see a correction down to this level, which would be 889. Who knows? Something like this. Any dips, though, looking at the historical track record, looking like good opportunities to buy. So, as long as that pattern continues, there's not necessarily any reason to expect differently until that pattern breaks down. Of course, this could be the time it breaks down, but doesn't have to be. Alrighty. Let's see. We were talking about this oil yesterday, I think, as well. And I think we were looking for a break of this trend line. Let's see. Yesterday, 12th of November, we were looking at it at around 8 o'clock here. Yeah, so we got a bounce. And then, in fact, continue. And we said that we have some space. We can maybe see, if you look at the daily chart, you can see maybe a potential to move up, square up this daily candle and fall. And the fall, looking at the price action signal, the yesterday's bear candle, that fall could bring us to this trend line, for example. So let's see, another few dollars maybe down. It's definitely possible. So that's oil. Let's go back. If you have something, Milan, by all means, please let me know, and we could take a look at if you wanted to share something specifically maybe that you saw. Let me know, okay? If you wanted to point to something specific. Other than that, I think we are looking at a quiet morning. Euro odd is indeed pushing the most so far. 60, about 20 pips so far, but probably waiting for the news event here. Nothing really going on. It's going to be a quiet morning. I don't know if anyone has something specific in mind. Otherwise, I don't see anything really to discuss. Maybe you have some questions. We can take maybe a look still at price action. Other than that, I think from my side, I've discussed most of the things I think I wanted to share, in fact. If the pound dollar does fall down, I think we could be heading towards 157. Let's take a look at those targets. You can easily see this thing fall to 157.30, 157.50 at minimum. If not, eventually all the way down to 154.5, 154, etc. It's possible. Well, you mean the template I'm using like this? It's really not too difficult. I guess I have it somewhere. I'm not sure. I can't share it now through this webinar. We would like to. I don't know how to transfer it to you. Let me say it this way. But what you can do is just add those moving averages, add fractals and oscillator, and just save it. It's not too difficult. It's only 5 moving averages, or 6 if you use the short-term one as well, fractal, and 1 indicator. So it's not too difficult. If you want those figures, They're up higher, okay, in the chat. The bears, I mean, the pound daily is definitely a pretty bearish day, right? Yesterday, looking like a good break. Not only is the big candle, but we do have a close below the support level as well. So it looks bearish to me. But the only thing that it could do, of course, we could see the basically the upside or the news event square up this candle potentially to somewhere before moving down. The indicators are awesome oscillator. You can go to Insert, Indicators, then go to Bill Williams and add the fractals and awesome oscillator. Personally, I'm very interested in the euro downside at the moment. Dollar Swiss upside. Those have the biggest interest. Pound even downside certainly. Dollar yen upside. At the moment, the majors seem the most interesting to me. Even the euro pound, if it hooks back maybe to 56.18 fib here, could definitely be a bouncing spot. Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to exclude anything from the potential of the pound because a bottom break doesn't really mean anything for the pound. I mean, for me, it does signal potential long-term bearishness, but it definitely could spike up even all the way back up to the fib, this old fib, even up to the 786, all the way up to 161.80. It's possible. Will it happen? I think the chances are not that high that that will happen. I think that a spike up to 159.60, 160 could easily happen if the news were positive, even up to potential of back to this trend line around 160.40. Those are all resistance zones: 159.60, 160, 160.40, 161.80, 161.20, and those spaces in between have potential for price to move up to those levels. If the news were negative, I wouldn't be surprised to see an easy continuation down with the momentum. Now that spike up to the 786 fib, I don't think that will become any more likely if we were to break, let's say, let me put a fib here on this, 1 second. It's pretty deep. I'm not sure if I have the figure correct, in fact. Now I'm starting to doubt. Well, anyhow, I'm not sure if I have that number right, but if it were to break this bottom, let me say it this way. If it breaks this bottom, hooks back and follows through, then I think the likelihood of then this moving all the way back up to 160, 180 is small in the intermediate future. Once we break this bottom, we'll probably only see smaller or half-size retracements and continuations. If we break this bottom, I don't think a massive rally like that will happen. Although you never know with the pound, I think the chances are smaller in statistics. We'll have to see, of course, how price responds when it gets back to 157, if it does get there, because that could still be a bouncing spot. We got a long-term moving average. We have these tops. It could be a bouncing spot. You don't know. We don't know. It will depend on how it falls, how deep it falls, and how it responds when it retraces. If it's just a shallow fall and a pretty spunky bounce up, then maybe we'll see more upside. If this just keeps falling and falling and the shorter time frames are just edging forward like that, then we probably will see more continuation. Yeah, definitely gaps can happen. That was definitely yeah, you saw that yesterday indeed. Very sudden fall during the news event. Let's take a look at that. Well, I'm not sure where it was. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. It was already falling, in fact, before the news event, some 30 pips, and then boom. 1 minute before the release, it looks like, in fact, or that was right at the release, maybe. Sorry. Just gap down 14 pips in the middle of the day. Amazing. The follow-through was not even that much, 30 pips, in fact, before it already started to retrace. It's been retracing ever since. A lot of 1 minute candles since then. And this is how it looks like on the 15-minute world. Well, folks, I think if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for today. I'm going to show you the webinars again. Go to admiralmarkets.com webinars and take a look at any of these trading today. If you have any questions, basically on price action, let me know, for example. But tomorrow we take a look at moving averages specifically. Here's the video archive, and there's a lot of topics. Maybe sometimes you might be surprised what topics we already take a look at. Sometimes I see, webinar suggestions from you all, and that's great. I'm very happy with that. But sometimes the suggested webinars have been already discussed, in fact, and we have recordings of those. So take a look. For example, fibs. We've definitely taken a look at fibs, for example, and we'll take a look at fibs again soon for fibs for beginners. But just take a look. It's quite a long list, that's true, but your webinar could be there. So that's what I wanted to share. Also, my wave analysis I wanted to share with you. And euro dollar expecting a wave 4, basically a continuation down. Yeah, pound, I actually had two scenarios. I wasn't sure because of the news event and the dollar yen expecting upside here. The Camarilla, we can take a look at that. Camarilla are definitely good levels, and Nenad uses them very intensively. Personally, I just use it as extra confidence, extra confirmation. For me, I always look at trend lines, technical levels, fibs. But if I'm looking for a short-term trade, especially on the euro and pound, but probably Tanatolo uses them all currencies. I don't know. We can ask him. Then it's extra confirmation for me. On the pound dollar, we have H3 short at 159.27. The breakout trade is way lower at 158.14. Interesting. Euro dollar breakout trade at 133.84, which makes sense. We'll be breaking that trend line basically. The H4 I think is still a bit risky, personally. But if it does, as I said, if it does make a spike up and then a bull flag, then the next break would be good. So in that regard, it makes sense as well. I was kind of saying the same already. So yeah, I'm not sure. It depends, how you trade them, of course. I mean, I don't necessarily go long or short right at those levels. I always look for other methods of entering and triggers. For me, it's just confluence. So that's all I can say, in fact. Alrighty, maybe we'll have a webinar with Tarantalas soon on Camarillas, I don't know. All right, we can ask him on Thursday because he knows more about it than I do. Well, folks, with that said, thanks to all for being here, and let's see what the pound news brings us in 20 minutes, but also 1 hour 20 minutes from now. I think it is. There's two sessions, right? Two separate timings of those events. Okay. Yep. Thank you too. And talk to you soon. Cheers.